I was getting my hand stitched up in the ER last night when a series of rapid beeps sounded on the intercom, followed by an announcement of ABD, Code A, Bay 1. Every doctor and nurse in the area stopped what they were doing and rushed to the main ER entrance. They got there just in time to meet the ambulances. I couldn't see anything, so I waited. I figured there had to have been a serious accident. My phone rang. It was my Lucy, my wife. She asked how my hand was. I told her they were still stitching it up. I apologized for getting blood all over her bagel, and she laughed and reminded me that she told me not to cut it that way. There was a pause while Lucy answered one of the kids' questions in the background. Then she came back on the line and asked if I saw that really bright light about half an hour ago. I didn't know what she was talking about, so she went on. It was crazy bright. The whole sky was this weird pastel pink color. Then it turned white. It was almost hard to look at it. It was so bright. Huh, I replied. Maybe it was a UFO. I craned my neck to see over the mass of people still huddled by the emergency bay. Still nothing. Lucy laughed. Yeah, must have been aliens. She said something to one of the kids again, then came back on the line. Okay, I'm gonna go. Joey said he's about to throw up. I said goodbye and ended the call. The commotion on the other end of the ER was growing as more people from other parts of the hospital arrived. Something smelled terrible. I covered my nose and mouth with my shirt and stood up. I walked over to the window so I could get a better look at what was happening. The crowd had thinned slightly. I saw a few nurses running off, probably to pick up supplies. At the end of the hall were 2 gurneys with medical personnel hovering over them. The smell got worse, and I gagged into my shirt. One of the gurneys began to move as someone pushed it down the hall. I stood in the doorway and watched. As the victim came into view, my eyes widened. It was a young woman, covered from head to toe in what I could only describe as bubbles. Some were as small as a pea, others were the size of a grapefruit. They all throbbed and pulsated from some pressure inside them. And every so often one would tear open and weep yellow fluid onto the gurney. The smell was overwhelming. They pushed her into the room next to mine. I could see everything from the window and the wall. They didn't bother closing the curtains. I heard the other gurney being pushed by and glanced over at it. A girl, maybe 12 or 13. I shuddered. I directed my gaze back to the person in the adjacent room. The doctors were popping bubbles to insert an IV. Fluid oozed onto the floor, and I used every bit of self-control I could muster to avoid throwing up. The woman's eyes were wide and darting back and forth. It was an expression of terror and agony. As if sensing my stare, a thin stalk slid from the corner of her left eye. The doctor shouted and backed up. The stalk elongated a little over a foot, and its tip grew a bubble of its own. The bubble expanded, and the weight caused the stalk to droop. When it was the size of an orange, it stopped growing. It hung like an obscene fruit. There was a yell from the room where they'd brought the other victim. I assumed it was for the same reason. On the other side of the window, more stalks emerged in a cluster from the woman's other eye, all of them producing bubbles like a bunch of grapes. My phone beeped. It was a text from Lucy. Can you go look outside? It's that light again. As if on cue, every light in the hospital went out. The emergency lights clicked on for half a second. Then they were dead. There was nothing. Nothing but a stream of pink light coming in from the open ambulance bay doors. I stepped in the hall and asked, to no one in particular, what was happening. I doubt anyone heard me, because the light shifted from pink to white, accompanied by a blast of noise I can only describe as static. It caused me to clasp my hands to my ears and retreat backward into the room where I cowered in the corner. I saw shadows passing in front of the white light reflecting off the floor. Bizarrely shaped shadows. They moved in a way that was both jerky and fluid. Like jelly suspended on bone. The shadows darkened as whatever was making them got closer. Doctors and nurses in the next room shrieked, and then there was a flash that silenced them. Then, 2 feet away in the hall, harshly illuminated from the back by the piercing white light, I saw it. My initial thought of jelly suspended on bone wasn't very far off. 6 ossified tubes carried heavy, segmented portions of sloshing, semi-transparent sacks. The first thing that came to mind was the body of a jellyfish. Bubbles and waving stalks decorated the entirety of its trunk, and it walked by, either not noticing me or not caring about my presence. It reached the room of the other victim. Just like before, there was a scream, a flash of light, and then silence. The light outside went dark. The sound stopped. The emergency lights in the hospital clicked on. I scrambled to my feet and looked through the window at the room next to me. The doctors were writhing on the ground with burns on their exposed skin. The burns didn't look life-threatening, but the woman on the gurney was gone. Nothing was left but the sticky, yellow fluid on the floor. "The fuck was that?" I yelled and banged on the window. The person who'd been stitching me up got off the floor, came back into the room, and asked me to sit down so he could finish. A nasty burn on the bridge of his nose wept tears of lymphatic fluid down his mouth and chin. "ABD code," he said. "Abduction. We've trained for them, but it was the first one I ever saw. They're not supposed to come back for the abductees, though. I wonder why they did that." I sputtered and asked, You people have dealt with this. How is this going to be on the front page of every paper?" "Well, you'll forget about it in a couple hours. Everyone will. Better write down what you remember so you can tell your friends. You'll recall something happened, but you won't remember what it was." I looked at him, stupefied. "So how could you train for something like that? And how do you know it was your first one if you can't remember?" He shrugged. "It's just what I was told. And good point about the other thing." He paused, and I saw a series of nearly invisible, faded scars around his hairline. He smiled and nodded. "Very good point."
And now, a word from our sponsor.
Do you like apples?
Yeah.
Well, I go.
Vanitas.
How do you like them apples?
Vanitas is a premium gaming peripheral brand geared toward developing high-performance products. We're currently working toward creating new, exciting, and unique products not currently found on the market. With quality to match its sleek and beautiful design, I can honestly say that my Vanitas mouse is the best that I've ever owned, and I'm looking forward to expanding my collection of Vanitas products. Vanitas ships internationally with extremely low international shipping costs, and shipping is free to the US and Canada. Your products will arrive quickly and carefully packaged, with most orders arriving within 7 to 10 business days. If you're looking to upgrade your setup in an affordable way without substituting looks, Vanitas is an optimal choice, and when you use code PRESSSTARTMOM at checkout, Vanitas is offering a 10% discount on your order. You'll be doing mom a solid, and you'll be doing yourself a solid. Everyone wins. Thank you so much to Vanitas for sponsoring this video.
Can you see me? Hello? Can you find me? I'm here. Behind you, look. Behind you. I'm behind you. I am right behind you. Don't be scared. I just want to play a game with you. Hey, don't you run away. Please stay.
Incy Wincy Spider went up the water spout. Down came the rain and washed the spider out. Out came the sun and dried up all the rain. So Incy Wincy Spider went up the spout again.